White after Labor Day? You'd better believe it. I'm Mr. Gigabytes, and this is Gigabytes Technology. So last time, after breaking a lot of equipment and doing many experiments on some ABS keyboard keys, we came up with the Speedee-brite recipe, which is 3% hydrogen peroxide solution. If you use a 40 developer, which is 12% hydrogen peroxide, it needs to be diluted in 4:1 to water. You heat that in a vessel. In my case, it's a turkey roaster, to 170 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour. This recipe worked consistently every time. And so, what do we do as the first real retrobriting challenge? Well, we do this. And what this is video from an unboxing episode that I did very early on, back in January, I believe it was. And this is a 1541 floppy drive. It is a slightly newer in the fact that it's white and it's got a Mitsumi floppy drive in it. It was clearly in need of some TLC and some retrobrite cleaning up, things like that. It was, interestingly, a device 9, and it had sat on top of the another drive for, I'm guessing, many years. So this is the device that I chose to retrobrite this time. So that's, of course, what I started. This is me right now. I'm just trying to pair the my little Q-Tech barbecue grill to try and monitor the heat, the temperature in the roasting pan. I was pairing it with my phone and testing it out, and it really wasn't reading. I've only used this once, and the first time it worked great. This time it was not registering the correct temperature at all. So what I ended up doing was just going ahead and just getting rid of it. And there we go, I just got rid of it. Turned it off. I was just going to have to monitor it every so often to make sure that it didn't go out of range. This is very much a hurry up and wait process. So a lot of this is it was cut out, a lot of the waiting part to bring it up to temperature. It took a good hour and a half to come up to 170 degrees. I didn't want to overshoot and start boiling the solution, so I just I set the roasting pan at 300 degrees and just let it come up gradually. Now, this is an interesting thing. When we were doing the experiments, the solution never looked like that. It was always clear. It may have had a little bit of foam in the top, but it was never bubbly like that. It never looked like a boiling cauldron. Now I double checked the temperature and it said 170 degrees, but the problem was I was trying to put everything in at once and I didn't have enough solution to cover all of the parts. So I went ahead and added more solution. That, of course, the solution only being 75 degrees, we actually dropped the temperature. I actually dropped the temperature on that by adding the extra quarts of 3% solution. And this solution is just quartz that I picked up at I believe Dollar Tree, but you can get them at Dollar General, and I believe Walmart sells them, and if memory serves, Walmart is the place to get these particular quartz. I believe they have the best price on those. So I ended up adding all 10 bottles. There's actually 11 there, but the 11th bottle was only a half. It was only half of one, so. But that dropped the temperature down to about 152. I had to reclaim that temperature, and I wanted to get it back up fairly quickly. So I just inched the thermostat up a little bit. That was mistake number 2. What I should have done is just take everything out of the solution, wait for everything to come back up in temperature again, and then check it out. Check it out, put it back in the solution, and then run it for an hour. Because the important thing is to have it run at 170 degrees for about an hour. And a few degrees plus or minus is fine, but you get out of those few degrees of range and things either won't work or bad things happen. This time I'm coming out and checking it once more. I've still got quite a few bubbles. I must have had, I'm not sure, I'm going to do some investigating, but I don't know exactly why I had so many bubbles, but everything looked like it was working regardless of the bubbles. I don't know if it was reacting to something inside the pan or whatnot. This roaster I only use for retro writing, so it has not been used for any other purpose. And of course I'm double checking the temperature. Once you take that lid off, the temperature drops pretty rapidly and levels off at a bit. The final mistake that I made here was I didn't monitor the temperature closely enough. Like I said, normally the last time I had that Q-Tech, an alarm will go off if it gets above a certain temperature or below a certain temperature. In this case, I didn't have that, so at one point it got to 178 degrees, and that is just not good. Nothing happened to the big pieces, but something happened to one of the smaller pieces, and you might be able to tell it from the video. The retro brighting definitely worked. In hindsight, I would have used less solution, maybe did one piece at a time, monitor it a little more closely. If nothing else, I'm here for you to learn from my mistakes. So the results. I've got to say that a lot of things have gone wrong in shooting this video, not the least of which was, not being able to shoot the disassembly of this unit. I'm going to shoot the reassembly of it in just a moment. And if you want the disassembly, you'll just have to play the video in reverse, I guess. There was a lot of footage that was lost because the recording software didn't quite get what it needed to get. It wasn't in the right settings. It's been a busy summer. But I got to say that I'm going to try and angle it so that you can kind of see that this is pretty much back to its original color. It did work. Now you might see a swirl pattern in the top. That's where a scratch, I don't know what it was, but there was it's not a real deep scratch. It's kind of a scuff mark from something that imprinted, basically scraped off a very, very thin layer of plastic after it had yellowed. So this is a slightly brighter spot. So it really accentuated that particular area of the case, because the scuff mark was actually brighter than the rest of the case. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. I'm gonna try and angle it here. Over on this side, didn't get completely submerged. I think I'm gonna get probably get some weights or something to try and hold these kind of floaty pieces of plastic down. This other side got much whiter. I didn't do anything to and you'll see. I don't know if you can see that the cases are just very slightly different. This top piece might use a little bit longer in the bath because it didn't completely submerge all the way. But one of the things, these bigger pieces of ABS didn't suffer any damage at all to the plastic themselves. But because it got too hot, these, I don't know if you can see the bubbly, it's almost like these little labels shrank just a fraction of a millimeter and just kind of got a little bit bubbly. But really, they're still on there, and they're still stuck tight. I mean, they're not coming off. It just bubbled those just a little bit, but it's still in really good shape. Let's get on to the little. This is the floppy pin, and there were two set screws. There were two little set screws that I had to loosen up. Very small Torx. I believe it was a T5. In fact, it was not a T5. It was a T6 that I used. So this piece here didn't appear to suffer any damage whatsoever. It looks exactly like it did. It brightened up. It looks great. And I'm assuming it's the same material that the front bezel was. So when I say the danger is you want to stay well below 180 degrees for this process, because you could reflow the plastic. That's what it looks like when you reflow plastic. I don't know why the bezel deformed, but this is my working hypothesis at this point. You'll see that it's all nice and white again. I mean, it's not the yellow like you saw earlier in the video. But yeah, it's not usable. In fact, if we take this, because this is all fine and everything, and just kind of set it in here. Yeah, it shrank even. So this is actually not even the same size. So this is what I think happened with this bezel. This is all made, of course, in a time before the plastics labeling was required. So you can Google it, but you see anytime you have a plastic product, it's got to be with the exception of things like sandwich bags and whatnot. The type of plastic that it's made out of, there's a little code with a recycling number on it, and there's a PS for polystyrene, a ABS for ABS plastic, so on and so forth. Well, I think this bezel is polystyrene, and this polystyrene should be able to go through the process, except this is a much more porous plastic, a much more brittle plastic, and it shrinks with too much heat. So it also has a lower melting point than ABS plastic. So even though the ABS plastic came out just fine, even though the heat did get to 178 degrees, 178 degrees is still well below the flow point of ABS plastic, but it is not below the flow point of polystyrene. And if my suspicion is correct, I wish I could show you a little mark on here that says that verifies that yes, this is polystyrene. The polystyrene can go through this process, but it has to go through at a lower temperature. It really can't go over 170 degrees because, it's a completely different plastic than ABS. And when I threw them all in together, there you go. That's what happened. Now, so fortunately for me, there is good news, and another video coming. Because this is a newer drive, a Mitsumi floppy drive is very, very easy to source. And Mitsumi used these bezels for a very long time in different colors. This one happens to be beige. There's black. There's kind of a tan, almost a bread bin kind of tan. I should be able to go on eBay, pick one up for parts or repair, and be able to replace this bezel very, very easily. It's not going to be terribly cheap. A working drive is running about $60. A 4 parts unit is running anywhere between $24 and $40. So we'll just have to look out for a good deal, and I'll do a follow-up video where I replace the bezel on this drive. But for now, let's go ahead and get back to the reassembly of this drive without the bezel, of course. I am going to put the little tab on. Normally, you put the bezel on first, and then put it through the hole and secure it that way. Yeah, obviously we don't have a bezel, so I'm just going to reassemble it with everything that I've got. I've just got the screws sitting here on the desk, on the bench, so I need to get it put back together so I don't lose any of the pieces. So join me for that here in a second.